Hi everyone, Melancholy Chill here again. Here to talk about the traditional finance space. We're going to talk about some of the downsides that come with being invested into the traditional finance system, and some of the repercussions that have come with that. Okay, we're going to look at the state of things right now. So, Americans who plan to work after collecting Social Security retirement benefits is at an incredible all-time high. So, more people than ever before in history have come to the conclusion that the benefits that they were supposed to get is just not going to do it for them in retirement, and that they're going to have to go back to work and make another source of income available. Um, the median real personal income by quintile, this goes back to the 1960s, and you can see the top 1%, or sorry, the top 5% has gone from below 200,000 to more than 400,000. Meanwhile, everyone else on this graph, except for the top 20% here, has suffered. Um, yeah, everyone else has stayed within these bands down here and have made no growth. Meanwhile, the top percentile have moved by far the most. So this is going to play heavily into what people are calling the K-shaped recovery, where the financially well off are doing extremely well in this environment, and those who were already struggling or were in the bottom 50% are now struggling even more with job security and with maintaining their standard of living. So this is government financial assistance, which is at a record high, and that's because of unemployment and other social security or any other social benefits like Medicaid, Medicare, uh, and unemployment insurance, etc., etc. So just in the last year, I mean, obviously this year was a bit of an exception because of the pandemic, but regardless, up until this point, you can see since the 1960s, again, this is going to be the theme, that there has been an increasing reliance on the government to give us some money. And the reason that is because our fixed salary doesn't do it for us, right? Our salaries, our minimum wage hasn't kept up with inflation. Um, so while productivity has skyrocketed, since the 1960s, our wages have not. In fact, they've stagnated and gotten worse. And during that whole time, the cost of living has gone up. So the government is aiming to reach a certain amount of inflation. They're like, we got to reach 2%. But what they're averaging into their data is they're including the 1%, the top 20%, and all these people, the things they're spending their money on have been deflationary, right? So if you're buying Gucci or some fine art or a nice car, yeah, the price of those are going to go down, but like the price of electricity, food, housing, if those things go up, those are the only things you should be counting. But because they include so many other things that kind of balance that out, they come to the conclusion that there is no inflation happening. But they're very I don't know. Apparently, they're not looking at the same thing I'm looking, because social benefits as a percentage of disposable income is at an all-time high, and going back to the 1960s, like it was like 1 or 2% of our income, and today it's between 30 and 40%. It's just unbelievable. So here are some key findings. 15% of people who lost their job due to COVID-19 are now planning to retire earlier than anticipated, and 1 in 10 people in their 50s and 60s are now planning to retire earlier than expected. People can't keep working. They're forced to keep working. They don't want to keep working, but they have to. So 58% of people in their 50s are not confident they'll be able to maintain their same quality of life in retirement. People are cutting back big time. And so maybe this is, somewhat partially on the individual who didn't save up for a rainy day, or who would spend their credit card on everything and not pay that off, right? I mean, I can understand, because my parents and relatives do that. But again, the traditional finance system was supposed to give them the benefit of the doubt that they would be able to retire off their savings. And that's just been proven not true at all. And so 27% of Americans are now considering tapping into their 401ks. People aren't holding on to their retirement funds. I mean, because they can't. They have to tap into that. And so they can't afford to go, there's only so far you can lower your quality of life or your standard of living before you have to go and look into your long-term savings. And this specifically notes that Hispanics and blacks have it the worst. And that's because of socioeconomic issues. 36% of Americans think the economy is going to get worse in the next 6 months, and 51% believe it's likely the stock market will decline 20% over the next 6 months. And they are absolutely right, because the government is giving out, they're socializing the losses of large corporations, and we're paying the bill for that, right? We're getting the real crap end of the stick. That's the way I can put it, right? The airlines are asking for more bailout money. They're asking for billions and billions of money so that they can exist. They're like, pay us money, we'll keep these people hired. No, just pay those people. They don't need to be there. They don't need to be financing all these failed corporations that didn't work out. I just think they should take these companies and tell them, hey, that's not our job. We're the government. Like, we're not the market. We're not the economy. It's not a communist country where our plan is, where we socialize everything. It's not like that. Even if it was like that, it would be more beneficial to give that to the people, right? You start at the bottom and work your way up, so that if you need these people to have a job or money to spend, just give it to them and not to these airlines who have been shown to be unreliable. Okay, U.S. banks handled trillions of dollars in suspicious transactions. The banks have a system of creating an alert every time money linked to a suspicious account is transacted. So they have this know your customer thing where they need the personal information of the people transacting the money. But what this article is basically telling us is that trillions of dollars went through the system, and they didn't ask a single question about their customers to know who they were, right? So I go to the bank, I want to deposit a couple $100s. They need to know my social security number. They need to know who I am and where I live and what I do and all these things. But somehow, terrorist organizations, a lot of Ponzi scheme operators, a lot of shady people have managed to go to like JP Morgan and get their money cleaned out, right? Get their money laundered. So trillions is, for reference, the US GDP was only about $20 trillion in 2019. So this figure means that the percentage of GDP that was probably in dirty laundered money from the bank could be, I don't know the actual figure, but like 20, it could be a really high percentage. It's just absurd. This is the debt required to finance $1. So the amount of money required to have an impact, right, with the stimulus, if the government wants to print money and use that effectively, they're doing a really bad job, because in the last 60 years, it's become exorbitantly expensive to print money. So the effectiveness of the government's ability to do this has deteriorated significantly, whereas in the past, a couple $100,000 would have been just fine to bail out during a pandemic. Nowadays, it takes trillions of dollars to get the economy up and running again, to have any effect on the economy. And so the 2008 financial crisis was when they started giving out huge bailout money to these corrupt and greedy banks and businesses that had no right to exist, and yet we've paid for their debt and for their for the risk they've taken. They've socialized the losses, and they reap all the reward from that. We get none of that. And so, and in addition to that, the ability for the government to do that again is no longer as effective. So during this time, the government isn't going to have, every time going forward, it's just going to get more and more difficult for the government to keep doing that. Debt used to maintain standards of living. So this goes way back again to the 1960s, where the standard of living was very high, and the debt needed to sustain that quality of life wasn't too high. You could work a minimum wage job. You could, go to college. You could do all these things, and you'd be just fine. But today, the inflation has hit the bottom class so much harder, because of, if you want to go to college, if you want to buy a house, if you want to pay your rent or electricity, that's where inflation has hit the hardest. And that's where people in the 1% or who are extremely wealthy haven't really felt the effects of inflation. So for us, for the bottom class, it's detrimental. This effect of needing more and more debt to sustain our quality of life, right? And I believe this is just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. This is just an effect of the traditional finance system and the irresponsibility going on. So here we can see people who are able to afford to invest in this current climate, and so exceedingly heavily leaning towards the wealthy. The more wealthy you are, the more you have to invest with. And so if you're not doing so hot, you're going to continue to do not so hot. This is the K-shaped recovery, right? The wealthy get wealthier, and then the poor get poorer. So greatest concerns for retirements for people in their 50s. People are very, very worried that their social security is going to dry up, and that is rightfully so. It's because it's being inflated away, and people need access to it now, or the taxes to pay and take it out early is expensive, or the government is going to tap into that and use those funds without their consent, or the manager is using that money to bet or to reinvest. And so it's just a real, like, the finance, our traditional money system is broken in every way you can imagine, right? They're just constantly exploiting you, and by the time I reach my old age, there's gonna be nothing left. That's for sure. So this is where Finance 2.0 comes in. If you use decentralized finance, you can independently verify the fairness of these systems. So there's no centralized organization, there's no centralized government that can control all of this, or can't take a profit, right? All these profits are for the individual to partake in. So for instance, if you want to add liquidity to Uniswap, sure, you'd probably make a lot more money if you were already wealthy, but regardless, you still have access to it. You can still participate in that. You can still take your own profits. And so this have given the financial instruments to anybody to participate in the finance system. It's no longer an exclusive area for the extremely wealthy. So if we go back here, the reason why the very wealthy are doing so well is because, well, for one, they're financially educated, but for two, they have access to these markets and to these over-the-counter trading, and for these ICOs, and for all these companies that want to come out, the people that get the first taste of it is obviously the extremely wealthy. So this is the alternative is to join the Finance 2.0 and have more fair system. So hopefully everything I'm saying makes sense, and yeah, hopefully you get some value out of this video. Thank you for watching. Have a very nice day.